Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this section of the course. In this section of the course, we're going to talk about a specific white paper which is called the Well-Architected Framework. And Amazon are actually updating their exams currently, and this white paper will feature very heavily in the new updates to the exam. We don't actually know when those updates will be, so just keep an eye on our discussion forums, but you definitely should read this white paper before going into the exam. So this white paper was actually first launched at reInvent, and if you have a look at the video off to the left, that's me doing a time-lapse video walking into reInvent in Las Vegas for the first keynote session, and it was launched by Werner Vogels, who's the CTO of Amazon, and we actually took this photo off to the right. It was taken by Anthony. And that was us in the crowd. So we had quite good seats, but I would recommend if you are going to go to reInvent this year to get to the keynotes early, at least half an hour early if you want any kind of good seats. And if you are going to go to reInvent this year, you just need to go to reinvent.awsevents.com and you can sign up there. Registration opens June 23rd, but there are early bird registrations open now, so you can just go to /early-bird as well. And just a little Easter egg, you guys might be interested in this. If you actually hit the play button and watch the video, you'll see my face in the first 5 seconds of the video. So here I am getting my pass, and actually in the background there as well was my partner Anthony. So there you go, a little Easter egg on the reInvent video. So the entire Cloud Guru team will be at reInvent this year. So if you want to meet with us, let us know. We are going to have some kind of party for students. We're still organizing that right now. But if you're signed up to the A Cloud Guru website, we will email you directly once that event has been organized. Okay, so enough about reInvent. If you want to get this white paper, you can just type in Well-Architected Framework into Google. It should be the first result, or you can use these 2 links, or we will link to this in the resources section of the course. So go ahead and download that white paper now. Okay, so let's just start talking about what is a well-architected framework. Well, basically the well-architected framework has been developed by a whole bunch of different solutions architects across the world, and it's been basically developed based on their experience helping AWS customers. So the well-architected framework is basically a set of questions that you can use to evaluate how your architecture is aligned to AWS best practices. Crucial to the well-architected framework is that there's 4 pillars. So we've got the first one, which is security, the second one, which is reliability, the third one, which is performance efficiency, and the final one, which is cost optimization. And we're going to have a lecture on each pillar in this section of the course. So this document is set out in a very defined way, and each pillar has a defined structure. So it always starts with the design principles, and then has the definition, and then it has the meat of the document, which is basically the best practices section. And that's really what you're going to be reading as you go through this white paper. And then they talk about what key AWS services that these individual pillars apply to. So what services does security apply to, for example? What services does cost optimization apply to, etc. Okay, so before we move on to the security pillar, I just want to talk a little bit about some general design principles. And these are principles that you should apply when architecting your solution on AWS. So the first one is to stop guessing about your capacity needs. Now, it used to be that, before cloud, you'd have a website and you'd have to basically guess how many customers were going to go visit that website over a period of time. And you always ended up facing 2 different scenarios. You're either going to over-provision your resources or under-provision your resources. So if you over-provisioned your resources, it meant that your website was going to be on a server that was you may be in a server farm, you've ordered too many servers, or your website's on a server that might have 2 CPUs and you only needed 1, and basically you're paying for resources that you don't need. The other scenario is where you under-provision, and this is even worse. It's where you completely misunderestimated the amount of traffic that your website would have, and then the website is going to fall over and you're going to have to quickly add new servers to that web server farm. So with cloud, we don't need to worry about any of this because we can use things like auto-scaling, for example. We can start small and then scale out as and when there is demand. The next thing is to test systems at production scale. And again, before cloud, you couldn't do this. If you wanted to test a production system, you had to go out and basically buy your production system. So you had to go out and buy your load balancers, buy all your your physical web servers, your database servers, etc. Great thing is now with cloud, we can test our production system at scale. So we can actually write a CloudFormation template, for example, and build out our entire production system. We can then go provision that in, say, a different region and then do load testing on that system and see how well it copes. Moving on to the third design principle, lower the risk of architecture change. Now, if you consider the fact that you can clone your production environment, in a CloudFormation template, for example, you can, test that environment very easily. And then, if an architectural change needs to happen, maybe you need more web servers, maybe you need to use Aurora instead of RDS because you want the performance, it actually lowers the risk of change. It's not like you're being stuck with traditional infrastructure. So if you order a database server and you have under-provisioned it again, then you're going to need to order a bigger server, and then you're stuck with that cost. The fourth general design principle is to automate to make architectural experimentation easier. So again, it would be using something like CloudFormation. If you turn your entire production environment into a CloudFormation template, what you can do is when AWS release a new service, Elastic File System, for example, you can then look at implementing EFS over EBS, and how does that actually change your entire production environment. And that sort of leads on to allow for evolutionary architectures. So, in a traditional based system where you would order physical servers, basically you would order those over a 4 or 5 year period. So the asset would basically depreciate over a 4 or 5 year period, and you'd be stuck with that original design for a 4 or 5 year period. Great thing about cloud is that you can basically, change your environment as and when AWS release new services. And we saw this with Lambda. When Lambda came out in 2014, not a lot of people were using it, but by the end of 2015, Lambda is embedded in a lot of production systems, and people are moving over to serverless architectures now. They're getting rid of EC2 instances and they're replacing EC2 with Lambda. And that's actually how the A Cloud Guru platform works. We don't use EC2 at all. Every time you make a request to our school, it runs inside Lambda. So it's a completely serverless architecture. And we actually talk about that at Serverless Conf, which is our serverless conferences around the world. So that is it for this lecture, guys. In the next lecture, we're going to move on to the first pillar, which is security. So if you've got the time, join me there.